Hello.
Hello, everyone. How we doing? First days in.
Welcome to this RA Exchange, live from ADE. My name is Chloe Lula. I'm the producer of the RA Exchange, and I'm joined by Patrick Mason,
Thanks for
who
having me.
needs a little introduction, but half German, half American,
Exactly.
but grew up in Bavaria.
Also true.
A DJ who has emerged in the last few years, but who comes from a long history of hard work in fashion, design. More than that, we'll get into it in this interview.
Yes, we will.
But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I wanted to open with a quote of yours
Right.
from an interview you gave when you were 27. And when the interviewer asked what you saw for yourself in 5 years' time, you said world domination. Do you consider yourself an ambitious person? And has your vision for world domination come to pass?
Well, you're 27. Of course, that's the make it or break it year. You know, you either go down as a legend, or you will have to become one in working even harder. So I always am a very ambitious person, and I try to set my goals to an extent that you actually have to work hard to reach it, but it's reachable. So don't set yourself up for failure. If you reach for the stars too high and you're not reaching that in the first 5 years, you get demotivated, and especially if you're a creative person, you start drifting into one depression and the next one and the next one. So for me, wanting world domination, of course, in a sense of I want to conquer the world with what I have to say, for what I have to give. And that is not only in a creative field, but also on a humanitarian level. So, yeah.
I think in the same interview, you said that you believe in the power of visualization.
Absolutely.
And you said, I realize that anything I can put my mind to and want, I can get. So when was the first time you realized you were capable of this? And what was it that you visualized for yourself?
There was a very strong sense of creating something, for me, substantial. When I was in that 24, 25, that was when I just started studying fashion design. And of course, by living in Berlin and being enveloped by Berlin's enigmas and nightlife, of course, there's no way around Berghain. So I spent most of my semesters probably in there. And it was always my dream, like every time when I was experiencing some kind of trips, I saw fashion, because fashion was the one thing I was very closely inspired and knit into. And I always wanted to have a fashion show in Berghain. Somehow I was like, this would be just so fucking out of the box, monumental. And back then, before Bottega did it, no one did it before. And 1 year later, really weird coincidence, there was a format in Berlin called Berlin Alternative Fashion Week. So they flew in and had up-and-coming designers from all over the world. And I was the only student that they allowed in, as I did it the 2 previous years before. And somehow, I don't know to this day how they managed to do it, but they were able to secure Berghain as location for their fashion shows. So just by knowing that, my entire mindset and determination and drive and focus shifted onto like a pin needle. Like I was like, okay, this is your chance to really do something crazy. And that I visualized it for 2.5 years in that club, and then seeing it to unfold in front of your eyes in real time is something if you ever get to experience that, it will change you, because that was the point for me when I knew if you are going for it, if you dream about it, if you talk about it, you speak it into existence, and then automatically you attract these kind of happenings.
Has that happened in another area of your life since then?
I mean, I'm sitting right here, right now. So yes, I think it's turning out really good.
So a lot of people here know you as a DJ, but as you mentioned, there was a lot that happened before you reached this point. You come from fashion, you come from modeling. Tell us about where you started and how these eventually coalesced into the world of club music.
Yeah. Well, as you said before, I am a little small town boy out of Bavaria in the south of Germany, where the fox and the rabbit say goodnight, and I was the only mixed race kid until I was 15 or maybe 16. So my surrounding and my social surroundings was very white, very Catholic, like very conservative, and I was always like kind of a class clown, like high energy, bouncing off the walls, very creative, with a very early on a hint of where it's gonna go. But if you live in an environment that is not particularly favorable for people like me, who look like me, and I had no other reference points for any black people other than my dad, and my dad was in the military army, so also a very strong, conservative and strict hand in the household. So I was always suppressing what actually was dwelling within me, and it only happened when I moved after my graduation, and I moved away and to Berlin. That was the time when I had my coming out. That was the time when I had my first sexual experiences. There was the time when I first went out into an electronic club with electronic music. Before that, it was really much R&B, hip-hop driven, pop culture, you know, shaking your ass to Beyonce and Justin Timberlake. Yeah, we were 16, we all did things. But at the same time, Berlin gave me the wings that I knew I had, but never dared to open. So it took me 2 or 3 years to actually stand my ground, to find, you know, somehow who I was. I think for some people it takes decades. For some people, they don't even reach it when they die. So, but Berlin gave me the freedom to be who I am unapologetically, to do what I want to do and be praised for it. You know, I was quirky, I was weird, I was dressing very obscurely, but in Berlin, no one gives a fuck. You know, you can walk down the street and, you know, you see someone wearing next to nothing on a normal Sunday morning, and no one, you know, parents walk by with their kids, and it's the normal thing in the world. So Berlin, there's a German saying that goes like, "Du bist verrückt, mein Kind, du musst nach Berlin." It's basically like, you're crazy, you have to go to Berlin. And my mom was the one that repeatedly told me to after I graduated, and I was a bit lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do, what I wanted to study. And Berlin was the one point that made everything happen for me.
You've said that you spent a lot of your life subverting perceptions of Black masculinity and what that should be. What are those, especially someplace like Bavaria?
Like I said before, I grew up in a household where my dad was in the military, so I had a very strict upbringing. Like, there were never really arguments in our in our surroundings, because as soon as my dad raised his voice, I was like a submissive little puppy that was not even dared to look at him. Like, it was quite strict, but at the same time, with a firm hand of love. He taught me a lot about being the man of the house, taking care of your family, having core values that align with your true identity, so you stand for what you say. Authenticity, weirdly enough, and also to be strong. You know, don't show weak emotions, especially if you grew up in Bavaria, and we were very much a minority. I was always beaten up in school as a kid. I was always like picked on, but at the same time, I was always the best in class. You know, my dad and my mom, they pushed me to always be 20 or 30% better than everyone else, because you will always have it harder. They will look down on you. They will not give you anything for free. So I had to fight for everything that I had and that I wanted. So nothing came really easy. And I think that is one thing that especially Black masculinity, when it's being, you know, put out of context, where, you know, Black people are not in a minority, like in the south of Germany, you have to toughen up, you know, you have to get a thick skin. You cannot crawl on the rock and cry, because what will that do for you? So at some point there in your life, there comes at a point, and for me it was 13, when I got beat up really bad, and I said, okay, this is not gonna happen anymore. So I did judo, and a lot of people don't know that as well, for almost 14 years, competitively. And that somehow gave me also confidence in myself, a confidence over my body, gave me discipline. That form of self-defense and being able to take care of yourself was also implied from my dad. When I was 5 years old, he put me in school because he said, like, you need to do something that has nothing to do with dolls and nothing to do with dressing up in like nice little dresses in kindergarten. No, you have to do something like contact sport. You need to be with other boys. I think he already felt it, like very early on, that I'm gonna go in the in the other direction. So he tried with everything that he got, probably, to make me like the other side more. But yeah, well, it didn't turn out that well, did it? Yeah, but I mean, there's ups and downsides. I'm still trying to subvert that image that black men have to be strong. Black men have to provide. Black men have no weak emotions. I mean, we're all human. We have to express every kind of emotion. That just makes us even more human and more relatable and more sensitive to others, and when we interact with others.
No, I think, you've also made a lot of posts on your Instagram where you really open yourself up and are being very vulnerable about how overcoming trauma and setbacks have made you the person you are and have been a huge reason why you've found the success that you have. Yeah. So people who are familiar with your DJing know that you're extremely active behind the decks. It makes sense to me now that you come from judo. But you're not just a DJ. You dance, you sing, you perform. How did the idea for this kind of multifaceted approach begin? Because I know that your goal is very much to repurpose the role of the DJ.
Well, I do not want to repurpose the role of a DJ. I think the role of a DJ is very clear to me. He's a selector, first and foremost. When it comes to DJ skills, I'm sorry, everyone can learn that within a week. There's no rocket science behind it. Get some CDJs, you learn how to mix, done. You can have all the swirls and effects and stuff, but that's not really necessary. The one thing that people come back to and want to see you and want to enjoy you is the vibe that you create while you play, the track selection, and if you have some kind of USP, unique selling point that you have that allows you to interact with your crowd on a very deep emotional level, that fulfills some kind of memory, joy, they're reminiscing in something that they relived. That's the most important thing as a DJ. So for me, yes, I'm very active behind the decks. That comes from me being a dancer, not a professional one, I have to say. But I grew up with the music of Michael Jackson, Janet Prince, and Grace Jones. So you can see all the flamboyance, all the theatrical poses and stuff. That's me as a little kid being glued to the TV and imitating and soaking everything up because I was so, mesmerized what's happening in front of me. And of course, these were also black role models for me, and the way that they moved, the way that they dressed, and the way how they interact with the crowd. So I was basically a little student since I was like 4 years old. And for me, it's a no-brainer to dance behind the decks because I'm a raver first. I danced on a dance floor the same way that I dance now behind the decks. And if you play music that you love, you cannot tell me that you're not like sitting or standing straight and not doing anything. Something's gonna start. Even if it's the leg or you start nodding. For me, it's my entire body. Like I always say, like I become the vessel of the music that I play. So naturally, I move a lot, and that's also one thing that gets me very deeply connected with the crowd, because that energy transfers. Same as a smile can go a long way, I think everybody has seen videos of someone starting to laugh in the tube station, and the one connects the other, and then two are laughing, then three, and then at some point the entire fucking train is laughing. It's the same thing with music, the same thing with body movement. It's a language, and it's about the authenticity, how authentic you translate that. Of course, if you start, creating a routine and like start popping, and that's not really your thing, and people see through that charade, that's a different story. But if you do it out of the heart and the goodness, and just because you love what you're doing and you're in the moment and you just don't give a fuck, dance like no one else is watching. Why would you care about the opinion of anyone else? So for me, dancing and music goes like this.
Yeah. I know you do a lot of voguing, or like you make a lot of references to
Yes.
voguing when you're dancing. I'm guessing that's kind of like a purposeful nod to that lineage, like from the ballroom scene.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
once I came across Paris is Burning, my life changed, especially as a queer kid who had no touch points to a queer culture until I was 20, and then I was basically overwhelmed by the amount of history that the gay culture actually has. And Paris is Burning, I just watched it 2 days ago, and every time I find something new in it, and the realness and the struggle they had to go through for this one night, the shit that they had to steal, the ways they had to starve themselves because they had no money. They were living on the pier, sleeping on the bridges, and stealing just to get the outfits ready for that one night, to be themselves, to be accepted by a society that otherwise just neglects them and discards them for something lesser than they are. So, of course, for me, voguing is a very powerful art form of communication. And if you know about it, I wouldn't call myself a professional voguer. I learning by doing and let the emotions do the movements. But voguing for me, especially for the queer culture, the queer black culture, has been a catalyst of euphoria, also frustration, anger, anything that has been stored up inside of me finds release when I get to move my body.
If you're comfortable talking about this, you have spoken quite openly about body dysmorphia.
Here we go.
And I think it's hard for me to understand that, but of course, a lot of people struggle with this. And in a podcast interview I was listening to, it was in German, so I think that I understood this. You said that there was a point in your 20s when you actually had to cover the mirrors in your apartment because you couldn't see yourself, you couldn't see your own reflection. You're now putting yourself on display a lot in front of crowds. So how did you overcome that? What was that process like?
It's still a process. It's not something that is overcome quickly. Yes, I have been and still am struggling from body dysmorphia, which is basically I see myself and my body image differently than the outside world is perceiving it. So I was always a very skinny kid growing up. I never thought much about it because, social norms does not, put anything on you if you're a kid. But as soon as you're getting older, you're in your adolescence. And I first realized it when I was 15 and I was in school and we had like a day out and we were playing volleyball. And it was in summer and I took my shirt off. And at that point, mind you not, I was still like, I was already doing judo, so I was kind of toned. I had a six-pack and shit, so I thought like, okay, cute. You can show something off. And I took my shirt off, and this girl who was right in front of me just turned around, looked at me like eyes wide open, like, you're so skinny. And this is the one thing that is burned into the depth of my skull to this day. And from that day, everything shifted, everything changed. I saw myself differently. And it only progressed, and when I moved to Berlin and outed myself, the next, how can I say it? The next sort of Damocles came rushing down on me because the gay culture ain't nice at all. Like the body image is catalog images, it's everybody wants the same, everybody wants to look a certain way, everybody wants their partner to look a certain way. And And if you're anything but that, you're already an outcast or you're not as desirable. And they will let you feel that in many, many ways. And for me, moving to Berlin, so completely new city, it was all by myself. Like, I had no family, no friends. I had to start from scratch. And then also opening myself up with my sexuality and who I want to become, it became very clear to me that I was not one of those desirable guys. I was not the one who was getting dates left and right. No, 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 no. I was the weird, freaky, skinny kid who dressed as he, something just exploded. And something did explode, and that was my personality. And I didn't know how to, focus it in one direction, so it just came out everywhere. But being in this position that I was, and you see what the actual body image is like and what people like, and you're being rejected here and there, and people give you the cold shoulder and let you know that you're not as desirable. That body dysmorphia manifested in very toxic ways, and it got so bad that every time in the morning when I woke up and I went to brush my teeth and I looked at myself in the mirror, I cried. I'd put some clothes on to try to masquerade it, but I still couldn't look at myself. So I started covering all the pictures, all the mirrors in my home, and that almost for a year and a half, until I found the friends that I still have now to this day who saved me. Mm. Those people, getting emotional. Thank you. But that's another thing that is very important in my life, because the people that I have in my life who has been and stuck around in days when I was on the floor, I had no money to pay my rent, I had no money to even go and buy me lunch. I felt shitty, I was rejected from the society, I was rejected from my own peers. But they were there, they caught me, and they built me up. They gave me confidence, they gave me love, unconditional love, and yeah, these are the more important things in life, Everybody tries to fixate on material things and what they want to reach in life and all their goals, but I can tell you right now, if you don't have a good support system around you of people who love you unconditionally, nothing matters, really. You can have the most amazing bags and clothes on your back and you be booked left and right and you tour the world, but you're gonna be fucking lonely. It gets lonely, even for me, and I have people around me, but I'm very blessed that I have friends and family who support me. So if there's any aspiring DJs out here who wants to embark on this path, be ready, hold your friends really close.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through all that, but
That's life.
I'm happy that you have the support network that you do.
Thank you, me too.
So you have ascended incredibly quickly as a DJ. You started DJing during lockdown, and you're now headlining like every major festival in the world. It's pretty incredible. What would you attribute your success to? And if I can kind of comment on that, like it seems that your vulnerability and just your openness with your personality is like a huge part of that.
I mean, yes. My career hasn't just started in lockdown-ish, kinda. I was doing some music before, but that was only very local. But in lockdown, I came very face-to-face with an existential crisis, like I think most of us did, when the entire world came to a halt. And it also became very clear to me of what I want to do with the talents that I have. And DJing, it became like a little thing in the lockdown. So I had like these weekly live streams on Instagram where I would go online. I would transform my entire living room into a club space. I even bought like mini strobo lights that I could like control on the right side, and had like a little smoke machine. And it was actually really fun. And people kept turning and tuning in every weekend. And I was just doing it so I felt somewhat connected to the outside world and give people some kind of relief so they're not all just isolated in lockdown, being miserable and watching Netflix until they fucking fall asleep. And also to share a little bit of my musical journey and my vision with them. And I was always very, I dance a lot. I always did, and I did this as the same thing in the streams. But the main point where my career started was my first Her set that I played, and of course also danced very viciously, and that catapulted me somehow on top of the stack for so many other bookers, because after 2 months of that stream being online, I had several top agencies actually wanting to rep me, and that was a bit of a mind-boggling, experience, because we're in a lockdown. There's no clubs open. Why would, But at the same time, I believe in what I can do. I believe that if you do something wholeheartedly and authentic, people know it. And I think that's the reason why I was able to climb the ladder as fast as I have. I'm trying to be consistent. I put 150% in every set that I play. I always try to keep people on their toes. I never play the same set. I also never prepare a set. For me, I always vibe off of you guys. So if you're not moving, I switch shit up until you do. And for me, it's just a lot of fun being energetic and connecting with people through movement and see them smiling. And even being locked on the dance floor, it's not all about hands up in the air and jumping and screaming. And there needs to be moments where people are on the dance floor, head down, just swerving, being hypnotized in the moment. And I think that's very important, which gets lost, I think, especially nowadays in the scene, I'd say, when it's like more about who gets the most viral moment, and it's all about one drop after the next, which is I'm trying to revert back to, basically. But yeah, music, dancing, energy, and being authentic while doing it. I think that's the key component here.
Well, let's talk about your music selection. I think...
How deep you want to go?
Well, I mean, as deep as you want to go. I think that you do have a reputation as being more of like a techno DJ. However, I know you come from Chicago House. You have like a real soft spot for that. Tell us about some of your inspirations and like what's really like your main, or some of your main reference points musically.
Yeah, well, so me growing up, the music that was running up and down our tape recorder was like funk, jazz, 80s, 90s, R&B and hip hop, and a lot of disco. My mom was a disco queen. So that was the music that, was resonating with me a lot. So when I moved to Berlin and I went to the first house parties, I got stuck to Chicago house, like really original OG stuff, and I was lucky enough to have incredible mentors who also taught me a lot about electronic music, where it comes from, the roots of it, and how techno and house is basically the same, and it all originated from the same source. From, if I want to do name dropping, like Jerome Sydenham was like one big figure, Matt Edwards, Radio Slave, David Durrell, all like iconic figures who are trailblazers till this day in electronic music and house music. And they started with like, okay, these are the artists that you need to know, starting from underground to resistance, and then working your way up. Paradise Garage, Studio 54, where it all originated from, the cool kids, the cool queer kids, basically, who were marginalized, and also the odd ones out, who built this from the ground up. It was, a very small selective crowd, and then these bubbles grew and into this big commercial wheel that we have today. So yes, my history comes from house music, and it took me like 3 years in Berghain to actually go onto the Berghain dance floor. The first 2 years, I was shocked, literally, because I had no idea that why are people facing one direction, doing like the same thing for like 17 hours. And, mind you not, I thought it was all the same track for me, it's like, okay, boom, 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 boom. When does shit switch up, you know? And it took me to hear a set from Ben Sims. I remember this was the first set in Berghain that I actually enjoyed back then, where I was like, okay, now I get it, you know? And then from Ben Sims, I moved to Robert Hood. From Robert Hood, it got to DJ Nobu. So I was lucky enough also to have the best musical education when it comes to club sound in an environment like Berghain on that sound system with that entire, you know, thing around it. And now I'm here. So I studied almost 10 years of dance floor PhDism, okay, to know how a dance floor works and how the energies of a dance floor can, you know, progress, regress. When do you have to have a dip? The storytelling of it, and how important a storyline in a set is. Now more than ever, I know how important longer set time is. I think one of these things nowadays with this 1.5 hours set times, which is becoming quite of a norm, every DJ who wants to properly tell a story is not able to do it within 1.5 hours. It takes at least 2 to 3 to get people locked into your sound, to be able to curate also a soundscape that takes them from one spot to the other. Me, for example, I like to do a lot of genre blending. You know, I rarely stay in one genre and then just hardline it to the end. You know, I start very deep, then I go into jungle, then I have some acid phases, then go back to Detroit techno, more rumbling warehouse stuff, and until I go to trance. And for me, electronic music has so much to offer. There's so much. Why would you limit yourself to only one thing if your heart desires to have more rhythmical, you know, impulses? So yeah, my record collection is quite extensive, I'd say.
You also play some pop edits.
Yes, I do. Not ashamed about it.
You have faced criticism for bringing pop edits
That's
into
fine.
techno sets, which it's a big topic of conversation right now. What is your response to people who are more purist in their view of dance music?
So first of all, it's completely fine to hate it. Music is, first of all, very subjective. I think everybody has something that they like and something they don't. You know, it's if you don't like pop edits, don't go see Marlon Hofstadt or myself. If you want to be a full-on techno purist, you have also spaces for that. That also being said, pop edits have a pinnacle, like a peak right now. You know, same as hard techno coming out of the pandemic was like sweeping over the world, and at some point no one could hear it anymore. The same thing with pop edits now, and its resurgence of Eurodance, and you know, it's that kind of thing. All the young kids want it. It's very TikTokable, blah blah blah. I use the pop edits because it is a reference point from when I grew up. You know, that was the edits or the originals that I shook my ass when I was 15, 16. So when I play to a crowd that is not just 19, 20-year-olds, but like more my age, I know if I drop a reference like this, which is not always on the nose, they know it. And that gives them that little, you know, push of energy, of memories, then they turn to their friends like, oh, remember, and they just go up. And I think for me also now, as I'm trying to create a new path for myself musically, I've been researching a lot over the last 3 months to find exactly my sound where I feel most comfortable with. Because of social media, there's this need also in the industry that everybody has to overperform in a level of, yes, we have to have these tracks with drop after drop after drop, otherwise we will lose the crowd. If we continue doing this, we will educate people to do this and to like this. I think it has to be a good mixture that people, and especially techno lovers, or kids that want to be techno lovers, know what techno actually is, and that it's not just like drop after drop, that there can be sequences where it's like 20 minutes and you don't know when one track ends and the other one begins. I think Zach, DVS1, said it very nicely in one of his interviews. It is really important that we don't go out and try to raise the finger and trying to educate them like you're in school, but it's more important to filter it into your sets and let them know subconsciously when you feed these sections in and give them a wider scope of what's actually out there and where it comes from. Every time when I play the bells and no one is responding to it, I'm actually shocked. I know exactly what crowd I'm playing to, and I mean, you know what I mean, right? It's heartbreaking, but at the same time, then you know what crowd you're tending to. You know exactly what they want from you, and either you know, head down and do whatever you want to do and just shove it down their throat, or you adapt. And I think that small line between adapting your set so you kind of hold the crowd and educate them by like feeding in some of these monumental tracks which built electronic techno music. And there's some kid out there who's gonna Shazam it, and then he's gonna go down the rabbit hole and find new music. And if you touch one kid, you can touch more. You just have to be aware that how to do it, and not, you know, I'm not a preacher here.
Well, you are continuing to pull from the world of fashion. I mean, obviously, just in the way you dress, but also, I know that you have some aspirations to continue bringing fashion back into music. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I can give you a little hint.
Okay.
So, in the 80s, there was a TV show called The Soul Train. And Soul Train was a show where they showcased new music. There was a DJ, and there was also a live TV show where people were forming, basically a hallway of people, and they would do like these little dance-offs, like dancing into the camera. And they all had like crazy outfits. People would dress up, and it was usually disco or house. And that was a nice accumulation of a very authentic vibe of people who want to dance, who can dance, who love to dance, and the music and the way they dress and they style themselves. And I feel like I watched it a lot when I was a kid, and I wanted to bring that kind of vibe back. The euphoria of people who go out, want to dress up, you know, they want to feel sexy, they want to have the sparkles on, and at the same time enjoying themselves, and not, you know, with their phones. It's like fully, you know, just you, the music, and the people around it. And of course, by showcasing these phenomenal artists and dancers in great clothing, my idea would also be like, okay, well, let's tie the knots and bring everything together. Invite voguing houses from all over the world, invite dance crews, invite singular individuals who have incredible style, who love to dance and love music, and showcase it all in a boiler room-esque environment, you know?
Cool.
Something like that.
I know that you've called Alexander McQueen your idol, and I have to say,
yes.
I'm not super fluent in the world of fashion, but why is he your idol, and like how has your idolization of him or designers like him shaped what you're doing in music also?
Well, Alexander McQueen, for the ones who do know him, he is one of the most iconic designers of our century. Unfortunately, he passed away, but his view on fashion was basically he's giving a fuck finger to everything and to everyone. He was designing for major houses and his own, and he did monumental runway shows that were happenings, that were so outrageous that people left because they didn't understand it. It was very radical. He didn't give a shit. He just had his vision, and that's what you got. But he was a master at the craft of tailoring. He was a master in design. And I want to take his energy of not giving too many shits about what people out there might think. If you have something that is inside of you that needs to be, you know, released, do it. You know, especially if you're the weird kid that no one wants to talk to, or you know, you're always ruled out. There is nothing that you can't do if you put your mind into it and you detach yourself from opinions of others. I think it's very, very limiting, and it's the killer of every creativity in your own soul.
I've even noticed in the way that you respond to people who maybe are critical of what you're doing is very compassionate. I was looking through your posts, And somebody wrote a comment on a picture you posted saying, "Die in hell," which is horrific. And you answered, "It seems like somebody needs a hug," which I just found to be like the cutest response, but also coming from a place of like deep compassion and empathy.
Yeah, I think it's not new to the world that that I'm a very controversial artist and not everybody is aligned with the things that I do or what I say, but it always comes from the heart. You know, I'm not doing anything to put anyone down. I think the power and the strength in a society lives or thrives on getting each other up, not putting each other down. And people who come and write nasty comments, I know that this is just, it has nothing to do with me. It is a mere reflection of their own insecurities, of their life that they're trying to project onto me. So yes, they probably have to do some self-work to get to a level where they feel more aligned with themselves so they don't have to put others down just to make them feel better for that 1 second or get somewhat of attention. But I also learned compassion and kindness goes a long way. You never know who's listening. You never know who you're speaking to, what they're going through. By writing a nasty comment back and engaging in a hateful way of communicating, you literally just fuel the fire, and it doesn't help anyone. I will, yes, shitty comments do get to me at some point. They do to everyone. I'm not cold to these, but at the same time, I'm trying to be as receptive and aware of why, how, and how to respond.
Despite your personal ambitions with your career, you are very connected to community and the idea of fostering a community. How do we collectively pull people up together, especially within the queer community, which you've written about online?
Yes. What I'm doing recently, I just relocated from Berlin to Lisbon, which is another
great DJ migration.
I'm one of them. But I don't want to become part of a problem. For me, it was very important if I come to a country, especially starting fresh, not knowing anything about it, I want to help build community or nurture community that is already there. And there is a very thriving, especially Brazilian baile funk community in Portugal, who I am supporting and reaching out to. Actually, in like 2 months, I'm doing a special birthday celebration in Lux in Lisbon. And it's going to be a fully curated lineup by me, especially queer, POC, trans artists from the community that will be playing alongside me. And we've been working on this project together to unify, especially the queer community in Lisbon, to give them a safe space that already actually existed. Lisbon is very liberal, but I've heard that some club spaces in Lisbon have been taken over by very cis, straight, white hierarchies. And for me, it's important that these safe spaces for queer people are nurtured, but at the same time, not just within Lisbon, but give them the opportunity to expand. And there's so much talent there. There's so much raw energy, especially with the music that I play and the body movement that I have. Brazilians and Portuguese people love to dance. They love to shake their behind, and they love to go down on anything. And that is for me the indication that yes, I'm with my people. In Berlin, I always felt a little bit displaced because I didn't see as many black or brown people around me. So I always had to create something that is for this community. And of course, there's a lot to do. There's so many ways of bringing each other up and helping each other by, if you're a record label, release artists that have that migrant background. If you're a club owner or a booker, try to have a diverse lineup, not just tokenism, which I still see a lot. You have a lineup of like 10 cis white dudes, and then you have like the one girl and the one queer guy. Yes. That's also like a part of the industry that is a problem that I feel can be changed very easily because there's so much raw, beautiful talent out there. And if all the DJs wouldn't just like elbows out, no, me, best slot is for me and everyone else can suck it, then we would have a way more diverse, a way more colorful, flourishing electronic music scene where people could go to events and discover new talent and just, you know, be surprised. Nowadays, we're not surprised anymore. The first 6 artists on a lineup, we've seen how much? 15, 20 times already. It's always the same ones. And nothing is really changing nowadays. We're always trying to advocate more women in electronic music, more POC and queer people in electronic music. It feels like 2 steps to the front and 3 steps back. Sometimes it's a bit frustrating. When you have made it as a marginalized person in this industry, and then you turn your back and you see like, oh, there's so many more. So I'm trying to infiltrate from within, you know, get as high as fast as possible, and then just, okay, that's my party, that's my people, that's how a party needs to look like. And everyone who has come to one of my shows know it's high energy, it's very inclusive, and people are having a good fucking time. And people don't want to get fucked up all the time anymore. I see people are way more serene, they're wearing their earplugs, you know, they're not completely off their tits anymore. And I think that is like the new Gen Z realness, you know, they come up with like a more, you know, serene and conscious mind. And I think that's the time now where we have to jump and make the shift that, and give artists the stage that deserve it, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my understanding is that your next musical goal is to pivot towards more neo R&B and neo soul. Am I right in this? So that you want to work on an album, or you are working on an album?
Yes,
currently.
that's true.
A lot of your inspirations beyond techno, Mickey Blanco, Frank Ocean. How is this project going?
That project, an ongoing situation due to heavy touring and mental and physical exhaustion. It is going, not at the pace that I would wish for it, but it's going somewhere. I'm not trying to rush anything. It's a project that is very dear to my heart. There will be a record out very soon, though. That's more into the electronic field. But like I said, there's going to be two lanes. One thing that I already touched base on, like I come from like soul, funk, and R&B, and artists like Erykah Badu, Frank Ocean, Mickey Blanco, Grace Jones, of course, are very close to my heart and like very similar, articulated in their creativity as I am. That project will be something that coming out from the left that probably no one will expect from me, which is actually way more exciting for me to not talk about right now, because I want to keep it more of a secret thing when it comes out. But there will be 2 alter egos, one that will going down the road of like new R&B, neo soul, and the other one house and techno.
Okay.
Voila.
You seem pretty disciplined. I imagine that you have quite an intense work ethic. When you do set your sight on something, you start visualizing something that you want to happen. What is your practice like your daily, weekly practice to make that happen?
I don't really have a daily practice, to be honest. I love to sleep in, especially if I can. I do have a very rigorous workout routine. I'm trying to look after myself, body and mind. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't go this well. For me, it always worked out not over dramatizing things, but when I put my mind on something, I do the research. I work really hard in terms of For example, if when I wanted to do the show, I remember 2 years ago when I got the first booking for Awakenings. I was in South America and my agent called me. He was like, okay, don't freak out. I got something really nice for you. Look in your emails. And Awakenings, back in the day when I was still going out, and I was not a festival guy at all, but I've heard about Awakenings and the crazy stages that they had. So I was visualizing at some point, yeah, I'm going to be there at some point. But you never really, you just put it in the back of the head and have it on loop and see what happens. And when the offer came in, I think first I cried, then I called my mom, and then I cried some more. And then I knew exactly, okay, if you do that, what would your show be like? You have to set yourself apart from the others. It's going to be your main debut thing. You cannot fuck up. And that you cannot fuck up thought is the one thing that drives me the most, because I want to be better than I expect of myself. So I've had all these plans in my head of lighting direction, the track selection, how you're going to move the crowd, when you're going to go on stage and perform something, or not do any of it and surprise them with a big, outfit reveal. And leading up to the show, I was more and more and more and more uncertain of the path that I laid in front of me. I was like, you know what? 2 minutes before the show, I threw everything in the corner. Like the playlist I had prepared, everything was like, fuck that shit. And I went on blank. It's like, okay, what intro do I have? Just literally like that. Also, my first Awakening set, I played after Klangkünstler. So stage was already on 155 BPM. People, the entire crowd was wide, pumped up dudes, doing the hake. And it's like, okay, let's dial it down, Let's have an ambient intro for 2 minutes, Get yourself some herbal tea. And we started, but at the same time, when you have these things, and you have these things more often as a DJ when you're touring than you think, then you have a warm-up DJ that starts with 160 BPM, you just look at him like, bitch. But you have to adapt, So it's always good to reset the vibe, and I was super nervous. I was sure I'm gonna lose half of the crowd, but everyone stayed, and it turned out to be one of my breakthrough moments of my career. So the one thing I can tell you is, yes, it is important to have a focused and a very strong mindset and work ethic. If you want to reach something, you have to work for it. But that comes in different forms, Someone who is a full-on digger and very into researching will spend more time going through all the archives of Discogs and Juno and whatnot to find the rarest white label B-side record that no one in the crowd will notice. But for him, it's important, and that step by step is a different trajectory, but step by step he will get to this point where he wants to be as well. For me, it was, I'm gonna be me, first and foremost. I'm not trying to put on a show, I am the show. Second of all, I'm very confident in the music that I play, because that's the music that I would love to hear. And if I transmit that authentic euphoria to the crowd, they will love it too. Hence, why I'm sitting here today. Mm-hmm. Something must have been going right. Thank you.
I guess as a closing question, I know that you have a strong message that you want to send out with your work and everything that you represent and what you do. What is that message? What message do you want to leave people with?
Okay, well, in times like these, difficult, heartbreaking, turbulent, fast, unrelenting times, it is more important that we see the beauty in life as well. We dwell too much on the negative. We open our phones and we're confronted with death and war and debates of clowns, and we forget very fast that everyone in this room has a roof over their head, has flowing water, has a warm meal on their table, and we have the freedom to go out and dance. So my message to the world is, first of all, on my dance floors, everyone's equal. and everyone's welcome. On my dance floors, euphoria rules. You know, I want people to engage and connect. This is a space where people feel connected through music, through sound, through body movement, through eye contact. And I want people to feel more, think less, judge less. Everybody's always quick to make an assumption about someone just because they saw it on social media and then jump to conclusions. No, be aware of your surroundings and just live a little bit more. Yeah.
I feel like you should consider running for president one day. I would definitely vote for
God,
you.
no. It will be a queerer place for sure.
Well, best of luck. And it's really been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thank you for listening. Thank you.